REFLECTIONS101.com. I'm Katerina Bowers. This is the second part of the anniversary edition. The following 6 words: happy, calm, peaceful, inspired, uplifted, and annoyed aren't just emotional snapshots. They're kind of a compass. They trace the emotional landscape of my journey. Today we will do calm, happy, and peaceful. They offer a powerful lens through which I revisit my writing. I thought, what if I used those 6 words as thematic anchors to organize reflections for this week's blog? I've created 6 sections, each one exploring that feelings show up in my writing, that what triggers it, and what it has taught me. It would look something like this. There are many times over the past 6 years that I have felt happy. Happy when I had completed a piece. Sometimes happy, calm, peaceful, inspired, uplifted, and sometimes annoyed. Happy moments were moments of joy, connection, laughter, and lightness. What made me smile? Seeing Everly, my great niece, look at her elephant that I had made for her, expecting that she would have many hours playing with Saskia. That is what I named the elephant. The finished Saskia weighed about 30 pounds. I made a video for it on YouTube so that you could see how the thing was put together. Which stories still warm my heart? Watching Yvonne's new house being set up and the community spirit that helped make many things possible for her family. The story about Cara and her daughter Bria, who was born at 23 weeks. Bria, she just had her first birthday on August 23rd. Then there was a story about Norm Stiles and his maple sugar bush and the fun that we had with Norm that afternoon. I've also written about the yarn circle and how it isn't just knitting that happens on Thursday. No, there's a lot of socializing, a lot of talking, and it's probably one of the weekly outings for many seniors. Stories and blogs about the nursing station, cooking, about Dutch cultural baking, playing accordion as a young girl, and studying to become a chaplain. These were all things that made me happy. Stories about friendships and stories about talented people in the area or people that I have met over the years. Stories about Michael Bishop, Linda Licio, Paul Newman, Chuck Spider Jones, Brenda LaRose, and Johnny Hawk, and there were many, many more. Then there was the feeling of calm. The stillness, the acceptance, or quiet reflections. Where did I find peace? Knowing that the only way forward is without worry. Finding out on the 24th of January, 5 years ago, that there was nothing that could be done surgically to repair my heart. 5 years earlier, Dr. Latter repaired my mitral valve by anchoring a ring to a circle of calcium within my heart. It worked well for 5 years. And then the problem started. Out of breath, tired, walking from the living room to the kitchen, and I was pooped out. Cooking became a chore, but it was an activity that I loved. So cooking, although it takes longer, still gives me a lot of pleasure. I decided to calm down and evaluate how I felt about it all. I decided to write a book about preparing for death. I called the book Got Your Affairs in Order? That was my first book. I followed it up by updating it and adding my 75th birthday party of Downton Abbey fame, where we had Rob Dreyer as the town crier and 65 of my closest friends and relatives. Having a party seemed like the right thing to do, and we all had such a wonderful time. Since I have limited energy, there are certain activities that are extremely difficult. Vacuuming floors, lifting my arms, it actually makes hanging my clothes up a chore. I used to have an immaculate house, but not anymore. Things get done when they get done. I can no longer clean my house in one day like I used to. It now takes me forever. I had Sylvie helping every 2 weeks, but she had to have her knee replacement done, so she's recovering now. So it's left to Lauren and I. What helped me slow down and breathe? First of all, don't put the cart before the horse. There are worse people off than me. You don't need to fix everything before you leave the planet, but you do need to make things right with the people who you've had words with, so that when you go forward, you do so without regret. I don't worry about day-to-day things. No, I don't worry anymore. I do what I can to make my life happy. There is much to be grateful for. I am still here. I'm on the right side of the grass. And when it's time for me to bid adieu, I am emotionally and mentally ready. I've prepared the paperwork for the last few days or weeks, whatever it happens to be. It may not be needed. I may just do what my mom did and peacefully pass in my sleep. Lauren is also prepared. I know he will miss me, and more so my cooking, but I know he is nice enough and resourceful enough that he will continue to be okay. So that is something I do not have to worry about. That is a blessing for me. My son Peter and his family are aware of my health situation. He has seen me in pain since 1986, when fibro started to rear its head. There were many things I missed from his younger years with Tammy, his partner, but they worked, and by the time I was diagnosed in 1995, I was in bad shape physically. I couldn't lift babies or babysit like other Omas could. I was too afraid to end up not being able to react fast enough in case of an emergency. But now that the grandchildren are all grown up, these worries are not with me anymore. It would be really nice to see my grandchildren have families of their own, and who knows, I may still get to see and experience that yet, and I welcome it. The third word was peaceful. Moments of resolution, surrender, or spiritual alignment. What felt whole or complete? Knowing there is more to life and death than what you see on the surface of everyday life. I was a chaplain for 14 years and did a lot of on-call nights since I lived very close to Lake Ridge Health in Oshawa. Dealing with life and death was quite normal for me. Being with a person in their last hours is such a privilege. Sometimes families are too distraught to be with their loved one, especially if they are being taken off life support. Sometimes that became my job. Proxy for family. Sitting with the patient, holding their hand, talking to them, reassuring them that remaining calm is good, to not fight the process. Their pain would soon be over, and they could continue their journey into the afterlife if that's what they believed. Consoling parents whose baby or young child had just passed also became my job. Being a mother, I could only imagine the grief that they were feeling. But I had experienced loss of my own, many different types of loss. I will go into that at some other time. Some of these things I've written and blogged about before, but there is more. Which stories offered closure or comfort? The train blog about my dad, the vapor story, both offered closure and comfort for me. The train blog I wrote about a few years ago, a story about my dad when he was in palliative care and on his last day on earth, October 21st, 2002. He had asked me earlier, how would he get to heaven? He worried because he wanted to find Mom again. Of course, he was going to go to heaven. He was a good guy. I told him the moment he dies, he would be transported to the train station platform. Now, those of you who watch Yellowstone, not the Yellowstone train station, okay? LOL. There will be a sign on the platform, and heaven will be included as one of the signs and one of the destinations. I told him he will wait a short time on the platform and the train will arrive and stop. The doors will open, so you walk towards the open door, and probably Jesus, your mom and dad, as well as your wife Laura, will be there to greet you. And as I was writing this, I was getting goosebumps. He accepted my version of how to get to heaven as a good way to do it. And I must tell you that as he took his last breath and his last heartbeat, which I felt with my hand on his chest, there was a train whistle blowing near the railway crossing near Ruddy Hospital in Whitby, at the outskirts of town. Hearing that whistle confirmed to me that Dad would be okay and that he was on his way to heaven. My second story I've never written about yet, but it is planned to be included in a new manuscript that I'm writing. I was present at the passing of my father-in-law, Sam Bowers, on Mother's Day in 1996. He had been in the hospital for a while with pulmonary fibrosis. Breathing was a huge effort for him, but on his last day, I experienced something so moving and so spiritual. It wasn't until 4 years later, when I was doing a CAPE unit in chaplaincy at Scarborough General Hospital, that I spoke to my professor about this experience. Reverend Eric House confirmed what I had seen, a wispy white vapor coming out of the top of Sam's head and in a swirl drifted quietly towards the corner of the room. I was awestruck and ready to faint, but what I had seen was the real thing. There are moments when the veil lifts, not with fanfare, but with silence so profound it hums. I stood in the sculptured forest in Halliburton, surrounded by sculptures carved from stones and spirit, wire and paint, and the air shimmered with dragonflies, hundreds of them, hovering like guardians at the gate. I didn't move. I couldn't. I felt like the forest was breathing with me. Spiritual moments that have remained with me all these years. Death is not the end. It is a passage. And sometimes, if we are still enough, we are allowed to see it. The process is a special celebration, not the kind you celebrate with a party, but one that is honored with the loved one to say, I was there, and it is certainly worth honoring. The dragonflies are very special to me as a symbol of honor, dignity, and reverence. Also, creativity, spirituality, and transformation. The day my friend Trish went to the visitation for her late cousin, David Guest, was actually a turning point for us. I was living in Lindsay with my roommate Trish at a time when I could barely walk. I couldn't do stairs anymore, and Trish had said, "Come live with me." I took her up on it. She had an old, out of key, honky tonk piano. The day of David's viewing, she came home and played something beautiful and unique. And when she asked me, had I heard this tune before, I said, I think you may have composed something special. Later, I was outside, and a huge 6-inch dragonfly flew right into my chest. It bounced off with a thud, and it flew off again. Within moments, the lyrics were flying into my head. I sat down at my computer and started to write. The music and the dragonfly stirred something within me, and the collaboration with Trish had started. The times I heard Trish play piano first thing in the morning, she would have woke up with a tune in her head, and she would sit down at the piano, and I could usually hear it. And automatically the lyrics would start flying into my head. Somewhere packed away in a box, I have a book of handwritten poetry, some dark, others joyful, romantic, life and death, family and friends. The process had started already in my 20s, and I really hadn't noticed it until I started putting this all together. So you learn something every day. I will finish off today's video and let you know that the remaining 3 emotions that I talked about earlier, which also included spirited, inspired, uplifted, and annoyed, are going to be looked at for the next video. And that will conclude the series for the anniversary. If you've enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Share it with your friends, and have a great week. I'm Katerina Bowers for reflections101.com. See you next week. Bye-bye.